Alright, so today we'll actually be doing a timeline about the most famous British invasion bands of all time. It is not The Who, it is not the Rolling Stones. If you don't know, oh, I forgot. Some of you guys do know about this band. It is apparently the Beatles. And they're actually the famous British band that actually existed from the 1960s until the 1970s. So basically, the Beatles are actually an English rock band which was formed in 1960 in Liverpool, London, England, which has the members as well. There are actually 4 members of the band. So basically, there was actually a 5th Beatle, Pete Best. Alright? So, who is Pete Best? So basically, first of all, Pete Best was actually the drummer for the Beatles. He was the former drummer of the Beatles. So basically, who is Pete Best? Pete Best is apparently the 5th Beatle. So, what happened? So what's a 5th Beatle? A 5th Beatle is actually an informal title that was applied to people who were the member of the Beatles with a strong association with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. The 5th Beatle apparently acclaimed the song to have the band's rise from 1963 to 1964. They have the beliefs in their 5th Beatle. So basically, the Beatles were apparently formed in 1960. But it's not until 1964 where they apparently say they were from the British invasion, actually. Okay. The 5th Beatle originally included Pete Best, the original drummer, the late bassist Stuart Sutcliffe, who actually died at 21 years old in Germany, and keyboardist Billy Preston. So basically, Stuart Sutcliffe, sorry for my pronunciation, he was the 5th original member of the Beatles. He played with the band primarily during their days in the act of Hamburg, Germany. Unfortunately, his life was cut short when a brain hemorrhage remained for his life at just 21 years old. When new member Paul McCartney joined in, he was actually with the rhythm guitar for Lennon to bass as a continue for the 4-piece. When Stewart was actually an accomplished painter, it compared to the other Beatles, his musical skills were described by inadequate. So Sutcliffe apparently was the first that had became famous for a mop-top hairstyle. He asked his girlfriend Astrid Kircher to cut his hair in imitation from the hairdo worn by his friend Klaus Vormann, and arguably came up with the band's name. Pete Best was also the former member of the Beatles. He was the first drummer which apparently played during the mid-time as the Act Club, both Liverpool and Hamburg, West Germany. By the time it was by mid-August of 1962, he was fired and replaced by Ringo Starr, who is now the drummer. Fun fact, Ringo Starr actually has a son named Zak Starkey. Zak Starkey also plays drums like his father. He also is the drummer for one of the Who concerts ever since Kenny Jones had left in 1982 after Keith Moon's death. Okay. So eventually, here are the temporary members. Chas Newby was actually a temporary member for the first time in 1960. But Lennon and Harrison also declined him to switch to bass guitar, who previously played guitar and piano. He officially became the band's bassist. Jimmy Nicole also played the drums of the 8 shows of the 1964 Beatles World Tour. When Starr became ill, the tour is almost cancelled. Instead of canceling, the Beatles manager Brian Espin actually hired Nicole, to stand in until Starr recovered. Starr apparently joined the band on June 14th in Melbourne. So this was actually the manager, Brian Espin. Brian Espin was actually the Beatles manager for 6 years until his death in 1967, where he died at the age of 32 from an overdose. So basically, there's actually one more. George Martin. He was producing all the Beatles recording, except for Let It Be. It was actually produced by the late Phil Spector, and the songs Real Love, Raise a Bird, and produced also by Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Electric. Yeah, I was correct. It was like Electric Light Orchestra. So we're not going to go through a lot of them because this one is going to take a lot of time. Anyways, let's go back. Sorry. Let's go back. So in the 1940s, John Lennon was actually born in the Oxford Street of Maternity Hospital in Liverpool. He was born on October 9, 1940, and was the former member of the Beatles. He was a singer and also a peace activist as well. Unfortunately, John Lennon died on December 9, 1980, from a gunshot wound, which was caused by Mark Chapman. Now, eventually, on October 9, 2 Johns were born, so please don't get really confused with it, okay? This is not the John and Twistle we're talking about. This is the John Lennon we're actually talking about, okay? Now, you've been wondering, do I really have like a lot of time to upload a lot of musical summaries? Well, of course not, like sometimes, okay? But don't get me started on it because, videos can take a long time to upload. Alright? So I don't want to go a little too far on it, okay? Okay, next one is George Harrison. Okay, so George Harrison was born in 12 Arnold Grove, Wavertree, Liverpool, in London, England. He was born on the 25th of February, 1943. So what does the Beatles members play? What do the Beatles members play? That's all. What instruments do the Beatles members use? Okay, George Harrison had played the lead guitar, but he was also included in exotic instruments like the ukulele, Indian sitars, flutes, tabla, dulcimer, and tempo drums. John Lennon played a lot of guitars, keyboards, harmonicas, and horns. Ringo handled most of the drumming. Paul McCartney is the bassist. Alright. Unfortunately, George Harrison passed away at 58 years old from lung cancer on November 29, 2001. Next up, we have Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942, in Walton Hospital, Liverpool. Just like Ringo Starr, or Richard Starkey, which is also known as Ringo Starr, they're the only two surviving members of the Beatles. Okay, is this really similar to The Who? The question is this really similar to The Who? Sort of, kind of. Now, this is really similar to The Who, as The Who apparently lost 2 members at that time. And also the Beatles had lost 2 members at the time, if you don't know. So basically, I'll just say the 2 surviving members from the present day is actually Richard Starkey and Paul McCartney as well. So basically, what really happened? What happened? The Beatles were formed in 1960s, So basically, these kinds of boys were actually teenagers at that time. It was found during the British invasion. So basically, those guys are like their 20s or so. They're probably teenagers. you know. So eventually, the last song was Let It Be, which was released in 1970. There was also a film which was actually conducted on May 13th on that same year as well. Unfortunately for that, the Beatles already disbanded, and basically the boys apparently pursued solo careers as well. But unfortunately, on December 8, 1980, Lennon was actually shot and killed outside, but in his New York City apartment by degraded gunmen. Now apparently, this is also another case as well. So basically, we don't know why he was shot, but I remember he was apparently walking outside, and he was definitely shot with a gun by Mark Chapman, you know. So apparently, Lennon and Harrison both died in the US. One died while being shot to death, and the other died of lung cancer. Unfortunately, another member of the Beatles had died. On November 29, 2001, Harrison dies of cancer in Los Angeles. Leaving Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr the only surviving members of the former band, the Beatles. So basically, there was actually on Disney Plus, there was actually The Beatles Get Back. There was actually a rooftop concert, which was apparently released in theaters, and it's on Disney Plus. So basically, this is actually not a show, but it's a rockumentary. The show apparently lasts for only 3 hours, and I mean it's really long. If you have the time, you can watch it. I'm not forcing anyone, okay? I understand you want to watch it, but if you're a middle schooler or even elementary, preschooler, you can watch it. But if you're a high schooler, it depends, I guess, because you know the drill, okay? You know the drill what I'm just gonna say, alright? Okay. I think that's all for now, and this is me signing off.